Hello and welcome to my list of my favorite movies of 2018. Number 10, Disobedience.
I want to take your picture.
Disobedience is a romantic drama from Chilean director Sebastián Lelio. It follows a woman, Ranit, who travels home for the funeral of her rabbi father. The trip is not an easy one for Ranit, who was ostracized from her Orthodox Jewish community after her romantic relationship with childhood friend Esti. Their relationship is rekindled as Ranit stays with Esti and her husband David. The film's three leads give amazing performances, particularly Rachel McAdams as Esti. The film's exploration of religion and sexuality is both gripping and meditative. The sex scenes are not fetish-sized, but handled with grace and reverence. The film is framed intimately throughout. This is used in multiple ways, sometimes magnifying the restrictive nature of the religious community. Often it's used to highlight shared glances and moments between the two lovers. The cinematography from Danny Cohen is not showy but impactful and meaningful. Disobedience features a strong screenplay based on the book of the same name by Naomi Alderman. It creates conflicted and complex characters. Rachel McAdams captures this conflict with perfection, showing Esti's struggle to stay true to the Orthodox Jewish teachings she's known her whole life versus the pull of actual love with her friend Ranit. Alessandro Nivola's performance as David is heartbreaking. Nivola earns our sympathy. David doesn't necessarily try to stand in the way of his wife and her desires, but you feel for him as he wrestles with supporting her decision and also staying true with his community's teachings. Disobedience is a truly understated film, buoyed by its strong performances. Number 9, Minding the Gap.
Take one.
I'm making this film because I saw myself in your story.
Minding the Gap is a documentary from 29-year-old first-time director Bing Liu. It follows 3 young men, Kier, Zach, and Bing Liu himself, as they bond together through skateboarding in an effort to escape volatile families in Rockford, Illinois, and then drift apart as the complications of adulthood set in.
And then somewhere along the line, everyone loses that.
It's pieced together from skating footage Liu shot as a teenager, interviews, and current footage of the young men's lives. Minding the Gap paints a complex portrait of what it's like to grow into a young man in the 21st century. This is done through beautiful footage of the boys skating through the city. Liu glides behind them, capturing the freedom that skating brings them. He is also able to capture the anger and frustration from the real world, how it carries over into their escape.
How did you get disciplined?
I mean, well, they call it child abuse now.
All 3 of the central characters have faced some sort of trauma, and the film ultimately takes a turn in confronting and reconciling these traumas. The crux seems to come when Liu interviews and confronts his mother about past abuse from his stepfather, and then confronts his friend Zach about abusive patterns he's seeing in his relationship with his girlfriend Nina. Liu exhibits compassion for his friend, even as he bluntly questions his actions. It sounds like a downer, but Minding the Gap pairs these tough themes with transcendent skateboard footage and some pretty insightful interviews from its young stars. Number 8, Mission Impossible Fallout.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
The Mission Impossible series has always been a favorite of mine, and it's slowly turned itself into one of the best action franchises around, thanks largely in part to writer-director Christopher McQuarrie's ability to not just stage eye-popping action sequences, but to weave them into a tight-knit and smart story. Tom Cruise has turned Ethan Hunt into a complex and flawed hero, Hunt almost becoming an extension of Cruise himself. He also runs a ton in this film, which is always a lot of fun. And not to mention, he broke his leg filming this scene. This guy is almost 60 years old and still doing his own stunts. Everyone laughs about Ethan Hunt free solo rock climbing in Mission Impossible 2, but it comes full circle in this film. Who's laughing now? Seriously though, I don't know how these films always manage to top themselves in the stunt department. The practicality of the stunts add real stakes to the action. Simon Pegg and Ving Rhames are great together in this one. They play off each other really well and add a lot of comedic relief. Henry Cavill gives one of his best performances since the vastly underrated The Man from U.N.C.L.E. My only complaint is that Rebecca Ferguson, who was amazing in Rogue Nation, is underutilized in this film. But she does a great job with what she's given. Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise just signed on for 2 more Mission Impossible films, and I really can't wait to see what they have for us. Number 7. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That way. Other way.
Do animals talk in this dimension? Because I don't want to freak them out.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best superhero movie of 2018. This, along with Black Panther, brought new life into the superhero genre. It proved that you can tell new and interesting stories with diverse characters, and audiences will still resonate with them. The film follows a new Spider-Man, black teenager Miles Morales, who becomes Spider-Man of his reality after being bit by a radioactive spider. This crosses his path with 5 other Spider-Men from other dimensions, including a less than heroic Peter Parker. All of them have to join together to stop a threat for all realities. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was written by Phil Lord, part of the duo behind the Lego Movie, and it brings some of that irreverent humor into this film as well. Lord and his team of writers created a heartfelt, unique, and powerful superhero story. It's an animated film made to appeal to both kids and adults. The animation is brilliant and eye-popping. It looks like a living, breathing comic book come to life. Comic book movies lend themselves to the endless possibilities of animation, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse embraces it. There are some really great voice performances here too. Jake Johnson plays his typical character when it gives his version of Peter Parker a charming persona.
My name is Peter Parker. In my universe, it's 1933, and I'm a private eye.
Nicolas Cage makes an appearance as the intense Spider-Man noir, and John Mulaney hams it up as the Looney Tunes-esque Spider-Han. I hope this film encourages studios to take chances with their big tentpole franchises. Audiences are tired of seeing the same stories repeated over and over. Number 6. The Writer.
No more riding, no more rodeos. If you don't stop, your seizures are gonna get worse.
The Writer, from director Chloe Zhao, is a poetic look at the life of a young cowboy in search of a new identity and what it means to be a man in the heartland of America. It follows a young Lakota cowboy, Brady Blackburn, recovering from a near-fatal rodeo injury on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Brady's identity is wrapped up in rodeo, and after losing the one thing that gave his life meaning, he struggles to find his purpose in life. The film is marked by dramatic and intimate scenes of human emotion set against jaw-dropping vistas of the American West. The performances are real and heartbreaking, with the actors playing versions of their real selves. It explores America, and particularly this subculture's views of masculinity. The film is beautifully shot by Joshua James Richards. His frame compositions are not just aesthetically pleasing, but thought-provoking. Characters are often dwarfed by their surroundings, like a Caspar David Friedrich painting. Brady Blackburn is portrayed by his real-life counterpart, Brady Janro. It's a raw performance from a first-time actor. Brady is able to convey a range of emotions: fear, anger, embarrassment, heartbreak, all with just a quiet and pensive performance. The writer packs an emotional punch. and I think everyone will find something in it that resonates with them. Number 5, Sorry to Bother You.
Just trying to give you some game. You want to make some money here? Then read the script with the white boys.
People say I talk with the white boys anyway, so why ain't it helping me out?
Well, you don't talk white enough. I'm not talking about Will Smith's wife. I'm talking about the real deal, like this young blood.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View.
I can see this one becoming a cult classic. Sorry to Bother You follows a young black telemarketer, Cassius Green, who adopts a white accent to succeed at his job. Swept into a corporate conspiracy, he has to choose between profit and joining his activist friends to organize a union. The film starts out as a stylish and brutally funny critique of capitalism, and takes one of the most absurd twists in film history. Along the way, it features some biting commentary on what it means to be black and successful in America, a country that seems to tell black people to make the most of themselves, but do it while playing by our rules, or else. This is an amazing debut for director Boots Riley, who shows a truly unique vision and presents it with striking visuals and rhythmic editing harkening back to his music career. Lakeith Stanfield is terrific as the lead, Cassius. He gives Cassius an awkward physicality, oftentimes hunched over as if trying to take up less space, go unnoticed, as if his presence is a bother. Tessa Thompson plays Cassius's artist girlfriend, Detroit. She's terrific and lends the film a lot of its attitude.
As always, we'll be getting that out to you right away.
Armie Hammer is also in this, and he's great as the corporate CEO Steve Lift. It's a role that pokes fun at the tech world, and also his own persona as well. Sorry to Bother You was some of the most fun I had in the theater this year, and it's a film I look forward to revisiting again and again. Number 4, Cold War.
Dwa serduszka, 4 oczy. Oj, oj, oj.
Cold War is a beautiful Polish film from director Paweł Pawlikowski, based loosely on his parents' relationship in post-war Poland. It follows the story of Victor, a musical director at a folk music academy, and Zula, a young singer he discovers there and then falls madly in love with. The film explores their subsequent love story over the course of the next 20 years, but it's told in short vignettes, oftentimes cutting out the most important parts of their story. Their story is a bleak one, like most things in Poland after World War II. This is emphasized by the bleak snow-covered setting and black and white cinematography. How can anything, let alone love, be expected to flourish in this barren landscape? Pawlikowski teams up once again with cinematographer Lucas Zal, who shot his last film Ida, which won Best Foreign Film at the 2015 Oscars. Zal's frame composition is once again some of the most artful work I've seen in film. Cold War uses a 4:3 aspect ratio, which boxes the couple in, trapping them in this toxic love where they can't find happiness, allowing no escape of their circumstances or relationship. Joanna Kulig gives a breakout performance as Zula. Her presence and performance are magnetic, especially when she's singing. She looks like an actress from another time and is able to lend her character an impulsive and dangerous aura. Pawlikowski has created a near-perfect film with Cold War and established himself as an artist with a smart and refined style. Number 3, First Reform.
Can God forgive us for what we've done to this world? Who can know the mind of God?
With First Reform, writer-director Paul Schrader may have created his best work. For years, Schrader has been ruminating on faith and men on the outside of society, helping Martin Scorsese create such movies as Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, and The Last Temptation of Christ. This seems to be the culmination of all that ruminating. Schrader presents us with the Reverend Ernst Toller, a pastor of a small historic church in upstate New York, who's dealing with mounting despair brought on by tragedy, worldly concerns, and a tormented past. The film is defined by its sparseness. The camera movements are few, the frame composition is minimal, and the score is non-existent. This is all part of the transcendental style of filmmaking, of which Schrader has literally written the book. First Reform is shot, edited, scored, and acted with constraint, a lot like the priestly collar around Toller's neck, except for when it isn't, which makes those flourishes so much more poignant when they happen. Ethan Hawke gives a powerhouse performance as the Reverend Toller. He is able to tackle the anger, the passion, and lament of Reverend Toller in subtle and restrained ways, but always looking like he's just about to burst. First Reform features striking visuals from cinematographer Alexander Dynan, a complex and thought-provoking message from Paul Schrader, and an all-time performance from Ethan Hawke. Number 2, Roma. Roma, from director Alfonso Cuarón, is an extremely personal film. Based partly on Cuarón's life, it follows the year in the life of a maid, Cleo, in Mexico City in the early 1970s. It's one of the most beautifully shot films this year, which is interesting considering the director didn't work with his usual collaborator Emmanuel Lubezki and shot the film himself. The contemporary black and white photography is stunning. Cuarón's extensive use of wide lenses and long takes allow each frame to be packed with details that unfold along with the scene. The sound design was unlike anything I've ever heard. It comes from all around you, bringing the sounds of Mexico City to life. The movie is a technical masterpiece, but it also features a beautiful performance from an unlikely source. Yalitza Aparicio, who plays the central character Cleo, is mesmerizing on screen. Aparicio is not a professional actress. She auditioned for the role shortly after completing graduate training for teaching. She only agreed to do the film because she had nothing better to do before starting a job in the fall. Aparicio gives a subtle performance, painted with slight moments of joy and lament. She has a very expressive face. It's not a showy performance, but it is certainly a powerful one. And that could really be said of the film in general. It makes the mundane beautiful. The film is available on Netflix, and I suggest you watch it any way you can. I was lucky enough to see it in theaters, which really showcased the cinematography and the unique sound design. Before I get to my number 1 film of 2018, I want to take a moment to talk about a few other films that I really liked this year. One I want to highlight is You Were Never Really Here. This one came really close to making my top 10, but it's really violent. It's not for everyone. But I think director Lynn Ramsey made some great directorial choices in the way she handled the violence in the film. It's not stylized or glorified, but instead cut around, rarely even seen, because you don't need to see it. We know what happens. It features Joaquin Phoenix giving one of his best performances ever. He plays a hitman who is haunted by PTSD, and it's such a physical performance. The film also has one of my favorite scores of the year from Johnny Greenwood. This movie was brutal and stayed with me for weeks. The next film I want to talk about is Leave No Trace. Leave No Trace hit close to home for me. It's about a father and his 13-year-old daughter who live off the grid in Forest Park in Portland, Oregon. It's directed by Deborah Granick, who previously did Winter's Bone, another film that hit close to home for me. Like in Winter's Bone, Granick is able to get a superb and emotional performance from a young actress, Thomasin McKenzie. It's a very expressive performance. She's able to convey so much emotion in her face. I expect we'll be hearing a lot from her in the future. I've always been a fan of Ben Foster, and he once again doesn't disappoint. He gives a much more subdued performance than usual. He lends the father character a sense of danger and unease that is palpable. I think it was one of the best performances of the year. My number one film of 2018, If Beale Street Could Talk.
You ready for this?
I've never been more ready for anything in my whole life.
If Beale Street Could Talk is Barry Jenkins' follow-up to 2016's Moonlight. Adapted from James Baldwin's novel of the same name. The film captures Baldwin's unique voice and style and brings it to life in the form of visual poetry. Both the book and Jenkins' film tell the same story of pregnant Tish and her wrongly convicted boyfriend Fonnie as they try to make it in 1970s Harlem. But they go about it in very different ways. Baldwin's story is very angry, and rightly so. But Jenkins keeps Tish and Fonnie's romance at the heart of the film. He uses the beginning of their relationship as an emotional anchor and revisits it multiple times throughout the film. This adds a sense of hope and optimism that comes at the beginning of the relationship to the rest of the world as it crashes in on them. Barry Jenkins and cinematographer James Paxton continue their partnership from Moonlight. They photograph their actors in such a beautiful and dreamy way. You see Fonnie the way Tish sees Fonnie, and vice versa. It makes it impossible not to feel for them. The somber jazz score from composer Nicholas Britell sets the mood for every scene and makes it my favorite score of the year. The film features great emotional performances from both of the leads, newcomer Kiki Lane and Stephan James. It also features some standout performances from the supporting cast too. Regina King and Coleman Domingo are terrific as Tish's parents. King in particular has some great moments when Tish tells her that she's pregnant, or when she travels to Puerto Rico to confront Fonnie's accuser. If Beale Street Could Talk moved me more than any other film this year. Its story and the way it's told by Jenkins and his crew stuck with me for weeks after I saw it. And that's why it's my favorite film of 2018. Well, there it is. My list of my favorite films of 2018. Let me know in the comments what some of your favorite movies were this year. And thanks for watching.